Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. A very warm welcome to this Monday, 17th October 2022 morning Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam discussion. Today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 4. Before we read on this verse, let's sing Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रज्ञाचार्य स्तोत्र शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रीला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paśyatya Desha Tarine Sarvam Krishna Arpanamastu Krishne Matirastu Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 2. ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. Synonym: Atma, body; Jaya, wife; Suta, son; Agara, palace; Pashu, horses and elephants; Dravina, treasury house; Bandhushu, on to friends and relatives; Rājye, in the kingdom; Cha, also; cāvikale, without being disturbed; nityaṁ, constant; virūḍhāṁ, deep-rooted; mamatāṁ, affinity; jahau, gave up. Translation: Mahārāja Parīkṣit, as a result of his wholehearted attraction for Lord Kṛṣṇa, was able to give up all deep-rooted affection for his personal body, his wife, his children, his palace, his animals like horses and elephants, his treasury house, his friends and relatives, and his undisputed kingdom. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. To become liberated means to become free from dehatma buddhi, the illusory attachment for personal bodily coverings and everything connected with the body, namely wife, children, and all other entanglements. One selects a wife for bodily comforts, and the result is children. For wife and children, one requires a dwelling place, and as such, a residential house is also necessary. Animals like horses, elephants, cows, and dogs are all household animals, and a householder has to keep them as householder paraphernalia. In modern civilization, the horses and elephants have been replaced by cars and conveyances with considerable horsepower. To maintain all the household affairs, one has to increase the bank balance and be careful about the treasury house. And in order to display the opulence of material assets, one has to keep good relations with friends and relatives, as well as become very careful about maintaining the status quo. This is called material civilization of material attachment. Devotion for Lord Kṛṣṇa means negation of all material attachments as detailed above. By the grace of Lord Kṛṣṇa, Mahārāja Parīkṣit was awarded all material amenities and an undisputed kingdom in which to enjoy the undisturbed position of king. But by the grace of the Lord, he was able to give up all connections with material attachment. That is the position of a pure devotee. Mahārāja Parīkṣit, due to his natural affection for Lord Kṛṣṇa as a devotee of the Lord, was always executing his royal duties on behalf of the Lord. And as a responsible king of the world, he was always careful to see that the influence of Kali would not enter his kingdom. A devotee of the Lord never thinks of his household paraphernalia as his own, but surrenders everything for the service of the Lord. Thereby, living entities under a devotee's care get the opportunity for God realization by management of a devotee master. Attachment for household paraphernalia and for Lord Krishna go poorly together. One attachment is a path of darkness, and the other attachment is a path of light. Where there is light, there is no darkness, and where there is darkness, there is no light. But an expert devotee can turn everything to the path of light by an attitude of service to the Lord. And the best example here is the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthira and householders like him can turn everything to light by dovetailing so-called material assets in the service of the Lord. But one who is not trained or is unable to turn everything to the service of the Lord, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, must give up all material connections before he can be fit to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Or in other words, one who has seriously heard Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for even one day, like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, from a fit personality like Shukadeva Goswami, may be able to lose all affinity for material things. There is no utility simply in imitating Mahārāja Parīkṣit and hearing Bhagavatam from professional men, even for 700 years. To take Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as a means of maintaining family expenditure is the grossest type of namaparadha, offense at the feet of the Lord. Sarva Shubha Kriya Samyam Api Pramada. Before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Mathurim Goshthavati Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Krupaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandastranam Dante Damyachah Punah Punah Shriman Rupa Padambhojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, Text 2. ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. Mahārāja Parīkṣit, as a result of his wholehearted attraction for Lord Krishna, was able to give up all deep-rooted affection for his personal body, his wife, his children, his palace, his animals like horses and elephants, his treasury house, his friends and relatives, and his undisputed kingdom. In this particular verse, it is mentioned about how at that spur of moment, Mahārāja Parīkṣit could renounce everything. Even though Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the emperor of the whole world, this is the prerogative of a pure devotee of the Lord, like Mahārāja Parīkṣit. We can see that even the birth of Mahārāja Parīkṣit has been wonderful birth, and similarly, his passing away is also going to be wonderful. We see that when Mahārāja Parīkṣit was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, he was protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself. So that's why his other name is Vishnu Rata. And Parīkṣit actually means one who has been examined. So even at his birth, Mahārāja Parīkṣit was examined in terms of his pure devotional service. So because of the pure devotional service of Mahārāja Parīkṣit, Krishna personally came and protected Mahārāja Parīkṣit within the womb of his mother from the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So Ashwatthama was the son of Dronacharya, and he went on a path of vengeance with a vow to take away the whole dynasty of Pandavas. He wanted to kill all the future generations of the Pandavas. And therefore he actually did a grievous sin of trying to kill Mahārāja Parīkṣit within the womb of his mother. But Krishna personally came and protected Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So this is the wonderful glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Krishna gives this promise to, Krishna says, "O Arjuna, you declare, you promise on my behalf that my devotee shall never vanquish." So this is a transcendental position of pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That whatever be the condition, Krishna personally comes and protects the devotees. Aham smarami madbhakta nayami paramam gatim. So there is in the Varaha Purana, it is mentioned that if at the end of one's life, if one is not able to remember the Lord, so because the health condition would be very difficult. So Krishna says that even if the devotee is not able to remember me, I will remember my devotee. Aham smarami madbhakta nayami paramam gatim. So this is the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Neha vikrama nashosti prattivayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that there is no loss or diminution in this engagement in loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the transcendental position to be in, where even a 0.0001% of engagement of devotional service puts one in the path of devotional service. And that path is fully auspicious. So some way or the other, if one gets attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, yena tena prakarena manat Krishne niveshayet sarve vidhi nishedasyo retayo reva kinkara. This is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami, that some way or the other fix the mind on Krishna. Some way or the other. It does not matter what way one employs to fix one's mind on Krishna. Manat Krishne niveshayet sarve vidhi nishedasyo retayo reva kinkara. So it is mentioned that all the rules and regulations that are existing is subservient to this most important rule. What is the most important rule? Yena tena prakarena manat Krishna niveshayet. Some way or the other, fix the mind on Krishna. So when the mind is fixed on Krishna, then Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahaitukam. So this is what Mahārāja Parīkṣit had. So Janayati Ashu Vairagyam. This is what Mahārāja Parīkṣit has shown in this particular verse. What is Vairagya? Vairagya is detachment, renunciation. So this verse is showing the total 100% renunciation of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So when he knew that when Shringi cursed Mahārāja Parīkṣit that you will die by a snake bite of Takshak snake in 7 days. Mahārāja Parīkṣit did not have even an iota of doubt that what his last activities should be. So immediately this is what is mentioned in this verse. As a result of his wholehearted attraction for Krishna. So this is the transcendental position of attraction for Krishna. So that is what we're saying, that Vasudeve Bhagavati. So when one is attached to Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, and in what way one is attached? Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, through the loving devotional service, which connects the devotee with the Lord. Then what happens? Janayati Ashuvairagyam. Immediately there is renunciation. Why is there renunciation? Because the param drishtva nivartate. Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. When there is higher taste of engaging in loving devotional service to Krishna, automatically the lower tastes are given up. What is the lower taste? The lower taste is in relationship with the body, the material senses, the material mind. So this is what is mentioned in this verse: ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra, paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu. So this is yasyatma buddhi kunape tridhatuke swadhik kalathradishu bhaumya jadi yatirtha buddhi salilena karichit janeshu abhigneshu saeva gokhara. So this is very beautifully mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, that when the atma buddhi, when one's intelligence and mind thinks only about this kunape tridhatuke, this container made up of three ingredients, kapha pitta vayu. So this is what mainly the body is composed of: bile, mucus, and air. So when one is thinking that I am this bag of bile, mucus, and air, I am this body, yasyatma buddhi kunape tridhatuke, and swadhik kalathradhishu bhaumya ijjati, and then through the intelligence and mind, one is thinking that everything is mine, this body is mine, and because the body is mine, everything related to the body is also mine. So it is starting with the identification with the body. That is the beginning of ignorance. So this is in the yogas it is mentioned about pancha kleshas, the five kinds of difficulties or impurities. So it starts with avidya. Avidya is ignorance. And what is it? The ignorance of our eternal nature, which is separate from the identification with the body. And identification with the body is something that comes naturally. Because we are in the material world, this identification comes naturally. The identification with the matter comes naturally. But what is the real identification? The real identification is that I have nothing to do with this external body. I have nothing to do with my mind. I have nothing to do with my intelligence. It is as Krishna gives the example of vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinanti naroparani tatha shariraya vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. So Krishna gives the example of how one person can take off the old clothes and put on the new clothes. So similarly, the living entity takes off the old bodies and puts on the new bodies. So it is this is the existence in the material world, which is that it's continuously one is identifying with the bodies that one is getting in successive births. And this identification is what is avidya, ignorance. So it is the ignorance of our real nature. So when there is ignorance of a real nature, there is asmita. Asmita is the attachment one has for anything related to the body. So that is the asmita. And when there is attachment so when this attachment is there, there is raga and dvesha. So I'm attracted to the things that I like, that is raga, and I'm repelled by the things that I don't like, dvesha, raga and dvesha. And then finally there is abhinivesha. So abhinivesha is the fear of death. So the fear of death is coming from ignorance. The ignorance of what? The ignorance of our eternal nature. So this is that's why there is this ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra asatsu api tesham pramatta nidhanam pashyan api na pashyati dehapatya kalatradishu ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra asatsu api tesham pramatta nidhanam pashyan api na pashyati. It is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, deha apatya kalatra adishu. So the body, the offsprings of the body, apatya, kalatra, the partner, the wife or husband, kalatra adishu, ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra asatsu api. One considers them as one's soldiers. And it is asat. It is not. It is what is the real truth, the eternal truth, is when something is eternally existing. For example, we exist eternally, and our love for the Lord exists eternally. The transcendental name of the Lord exists eternally. Anything related to the Lord exists eternally. So that is Sat. That is the truth, the eternal truth, the supreme absolute truth. So the supreme absolute truth is absolute at every point, every moment, since time immemorial. So there is no beginning, there is no end. It is very difficult to understand this concept because we are in material world, and the only thing that we understand is that I was born, and every year I have my birthday. So this is what we understand. So whatever date I was born, every year when that date comes, I have my birthday, and I celebrate that I'm born on this day. And then because of that, I'm concerned that I will die one day. So this is material world. So janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita about the qualities of a person who is engaged in his loving devotional service. What are the qualities? Indriyartheshu vairagyam. One is renouncing the attachment to the sense objects. The senses are always seeking the sense objects. That is a natural position of the senses. The eye wants to see something beautiful, the nose wants to smell something nice, the ear wants to hear nice songs, the tongue wants to taste nice dishes. So the skin wants to touch nice things. So all this is what the senses are. The senses are always attached to sense objects. So what is the qualification of a person who is going in the direction of Krishna consciousness? Indriyartheshu vairagya. So one is not attached to the sense gratification, the objects of the senses. Anahankaram evacha. What is the second qualification of a person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness? One does not have this false ego. The false ego is, again, the false ego is the thinking that I am this body, and whatever I do is a great thing that I do. Or if I do something bad, I don't want to proclaim that I have done it, or I want to blame someone else. So this is false ego. False ego at its work. It is always trying to make oneself grand, and that is ahankara. But what is the real ego? The real ego is always in the mood of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that mood of service, whatever the result is coming, one is not bothered about it. It could be good result, it could be bad result, whatever it is coming. One is not affected by the results. That is anahankara, anahankara yoja, then janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. So Krishna mentions that in that state, one is very clearly knows that the precarious position in this material world. When one takes birth, there is death, and between birth and death there is jara and vyadhi. There is old age and disease. So this is very clear to a person who is in the spiritual, who is engaged in the spiritual thoughts, who is engaged in Krishna consciousness. And that is seen in this verse. ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. So we see here the Atma is in relation to body. So it is mentioned body, Jaya, wife, Suta, son, Agara, palace, Pashu, horses and elephants, Dravina, treasury, house, Bandhuṣu, onto friends and relatives. So this, when we hear about all this, there is a very beautiful verse that Srila Prabhupada actually, in many of his lectures, he mentions this particular verse. He says, he talks about this verse called Yasyaham anugrahanami harishye tad dhanam shanai tato dhanam tyajati asya dukkha dukhitam swajano dukkha dukhitam. So this is Krishna's special mercy. So it is said in that particular verse that when Krishna is showing special mercy, it is said that Yasyaham anugrahanami harishye tad dhanam shanai. I take away their material wealth. So it is really fearful for a materialist, because the false ego is shattered when one has got this position, wealth, and everything else in the society. Everyone respects that person because of the position and everything else that the person has. But therefore the greatest fear for a gross materialist is that if I lose my prestige, my wealth, or whatever is associated with me, because there is that strong attachment. Again, it's false ego. So in that particular verse, Krishna is saying that if I'm giving someone my special blessing, I'm taking away their harishye tad dhanam shanai, their material wealth. So tato dhanam tyajati asya swajano dukkha dukhitam. So then, because the person has lost of wealth and prestige and everything else, everyone who is with the person because of those things will leave that person. So that person will have only real friends who are interested in him, not his possessions. This is a very important point, because generally when one is attached to gross materialism, the attachment is for that person's possessions rather than the person themselves. It is an unfortunate situation, but sometimes that does happen. So then, who are with that person then at the time when everything is taken away, all the possessions? The people who actually love the person, not his possessions, not his externalities. The people who are actually interested in him, in that person as a person. So this is, then one can get engaged purely in the devotional service of the Lord. So this arrangement that got, so this is all transcendental arrangement in the life of Srila Mahārāja Parīkṣit. It's transcendental arrangement. It is divinely arranged so that Mahārāja Parīkṣit can become totally absorbed in hearing about the Krishna Katha, this wonderful pastimes of Krishna. And then Srila Shukadeva Goswami gets that proper disciple who can hear him talking continuously. for 7 days. So this is that transcendental divine arrangement of the Lord, where to show to the whole world that this is the purity of devotional service. That so Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, to become liberated means to become free from dehatma buddhi, the illusory attachment for personal bodily coverings and everything connected with the body, namely wife, children, and all other entanglements. So it is so one in the material world. This is it is one has to one needs society. So unless one is at the highest stage of pure devotional service of the Lord, totally absorbed in the remembrance of the Lord 24/7, unless one is at that stage, one actually needs this, and therefore there is this varnashrama system that is in place. The varna and ashrama, the brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra are the varnas, and brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas are the ashramas. So chaturvarnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagasha tasya kartaram api me vidya kartaram avyayam. So Krishna mentions that the four varnas, brahmachari, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, and also the ashramas, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas, are actually created by the Lord according to the guna and karma, according to the qualities and the activities of the individual, because every individual are at their own level. They are uniquely positioned in terms of being engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord. So therefore these ashramas are there, these varnas are there. So for example, if someone is attached to the Lord in terms of understanding the scriptures and the purports of the scriptures, then one is mainly in the brahmana category. If one is interested in administration and managing things, then one is in the kshatriya. If one is interested in business and doing agriculture, engaging in agriculture, then one is in the category of vaishya. And then if one is interested in serving the brahmana, kshatriyas, and shudras and vaishyas, then one is in the category of a shudra. So all this is arranged so that everyone together can engage in loving devotional service of the Lord through swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava yatta pravritti bhutanam yena sarvamidam tata swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. So this is mentioned by Krishna that yatta pravritti bhutanam yena sarvamidam tata. So Krishna mentions that through whose energy one is acting. Whose energy it is? It is the Lord's energy. So the Lord has got the internal energy and the external energy. And the whole cosmic creation is Lord's internal and external energy. There is nothing else in this whole cosmic creation. So therefore, all the activities are taking place due to the energy of the Lord. Yatta pravarti bhutanam yena sarvamidam tata. And everything is Lord's. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. So when one gives the results of those activities to the Lord, swakarmana tamabhyarcha, then one attains perfection. Siddhim vindati manava. That is perfection, the real perfection. The real perfection is when one understands that whatever energy I have is coming from the Lord, and whatever I have is Lord's. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada actually mentions here down in the purport, Maharaj Yudhishthira and householders like him can turn everything to light by dovetailing so-called material assets in the service of the Lord. But one who is not trained or is unable to turn everything to the service of the Lord, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe, must give up all material connections before he can be fit to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Or in other words, one who has seriously heard Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for even one day, like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, from a fit personality like Shukadeva Goswami, may be able to lose all affinity for material things. This is a very, this sentence, one can really try and keep reading this sentence, this particular sentence. It has got deep meaning in it. So here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning about Maharaj Yudhishthira and householders like him can turn. So before this sentence, Srila Prabhupada mentions attachment for household paraphernalia and for Lord Krishna go poorly together. One attachment is a path of darkness and the other attachment is a path of light. So here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning about, this is Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa Apashyatam Atmatattvam Grahishu Grahamedina. So here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning about the Grahamedis. So in the case of Grahamedis, this is not the Grahastha ashram where everything is, where Krishna is the center of everything and everything is offered to the Lord and then partaken. So that is Grahastha. But then there is Grahamedhi. So what is a Grahamedhi? Then there is Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa. So that is Grahamedhi, where there is no discussion of Krishna's pastimes, his talks, his devotees' pastimes. But there is discussion of everything else other than that. Thousands of other things. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa. Why that is happening? Because apashyatam atma-tattvam. Because one does not know one's original constitutional position as an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. Mama eva amsha jiva loke. So because that awareness is not there, there is Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa. There is this hearing thousands of other things which has no relationship with Krishna and his pure devotees. Then that is path of darkness. So then what does one say? Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. So this is the transcendental mantra where one is understanding that, oh Lord, please lead me from darkness to light. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. From the untruth to the truth. So that is from the material to the spiritual. From mrityor ma amritam gamaya. From death to eternality. So this is how does one understand this when one hears about the Lord? So here Srila Prabhupada mentions, where there is light, there is no darkness, and where there is Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakar, Yaha Krishna Taha Nahi Maya Adhikar. So when there is the discussion about the Lord taking place, it is like a bright sun that has come in. So when there is that sun there is no question of darkness. So Krishna. So this is the example that is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's a metaphor saying that Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like the darkness. Wherever there is the sun of Krishna's sun, the discussion of Krishna taking place, there is no question of Maya existing there, the darkness existing there. So here then Srila Prabhupada mentions, but an expert devotee can turn everything to the path of light by an attitude of service to the Lord. And the best example here is the Pandavas. This is so when anasaktasya vishyan yatharham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So this is mentioned, prapanchikaya buddhya hari sambandhi vasuna mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam halgo kathyate. So there is so this renunciation, there is a false renunciation and there is a real renunciation. The false renunciation is renouncing, saying that because this is material, I don't want anything to do with this. The real renunciation is, even though this is material, this is an energy of the Lord. And because this is the energy of the Lord, I want to use this energy in the service of whose energy it is in the first place. So whose energy is everything in the first place? It is Krishna's energy. So when it is, so there is this, when someone is doing some oblations, when one is going in the water, in a river, what one does is one takes the water from the river and then puts the water back into the river. So this is one of the ways of showing the respect to the river. So what does it mean? It means that this is not mine, idam na mama. So there is this transcendental Sanskrit words which says idam na mama. This is not mine. So this is the position, because nothing is ours, literally. Everything belongs to the Lord. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincham jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha magrida kasya sudhanam purnamada purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnamevavashishyate. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete, and the complete things are emerging from Him, and they are complete by itself. This is a transcendental position. So everything is the Lord's. So if everything is the Lord's, what is at the end of the day, one has to. It is said by the great acharyas that so one reaches at a position where one renounces everything, and one becomes totally renounced, 100% renounced, nothing to do with anything, any possessions, everything. But in the end, one has to even renounce the desire to renounce, or that mentality that I am a renunciant. It's a very high state. It is not something that can be imitated, because even to get to the state of what Mahārāja Parīkṣit is here, it is the most difficult thing. Because naturally, that is why there is conditioned living entities in this material world, because one from the morning to the time when one sleeps, one is constantly in the mode of that I am this body and I am doing this thing, I am doing that thing. One is sleeping, again the dream is thinking about one's own body, that I am going to that place, I am doing that. And in the deep sleep, so there are different states, jagrata, swapna, sushupti. So these are and then there is turiya, and then there is turiya tita. Actually the five states of our existence. The one state is when we are awake, so that is jagrata. So we are awake and we are doing lots of things. Then nighttime we are going to sleep, and before sleeping, before getting the deep sleep, there is swapna, the dream, state of dream. And then there is sushupti. The sushupti is deep sleep. So one is awake, then one goes into the state of dreaming, and then one gets deep sleep. And then beyond these three states, there is turiya. What is that state? The turiya state is the fourth state. The fourth state is the state where one is always in the state of sakshi bhava, in the state of brahma bhuta. Brahma bhuta prasannatmana shochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param mam choya avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So that is when one is engaged in avyabhicharani bhakti, that this loving devotional service which is totally devoid of tinge of anything material, and constantly engaged in that loving devotional service. Sagunan samatityetan. So Krishna says that Krishna personally helps them to cross over the three modes of material nature and reach that state of Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. And then what happens when one is in Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma? Again, Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So again, one is so what does this mean? This means that bhakti is the beginning and bhakti is the end. So in the beginning, when the bhakti is, there might be lot of endeavor from one side, huge endeavor from one side to engage in bhakti, constant bhakti. And when there is huge endeavor to engage in constant bhakti, what is the end? The end goal is the bhakti is being performed automatically. It is spontaneous loving devotional service to the Lord. So initially it might not be spontaneous. There is a lot of effort being done from one side, and that effort has to be constant effort, continuous effort. And when the Lord sees that there is this constant continuous effort being made by this by my part and parcel, then the Lord makes it spontaneous. That devotional service is then spontaneous, and that spontaneous devotional service is is our natural state as well. As it is nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhika guna shravanadi shuddha chitte kara. So that spontaneous loving devotion to the Lord is eternally there in all the living entities. It's not something that is outside us, that we have to do a lot of different things and go out and get. The example given is that of the musk in the deer. So there is this beautiful, wonderful smell that comes from the musk. There is a gland in the deer, but the deer is searching for it everywhere in the forest, not knowing that it is coming from the deer itself. It is a gland in the deer. So it's exactly the same thing. That love for the Lord is there, is already there. One is searching it everywhere else, but it's already there within us. And that is when that is realized. So this is what we are talking about. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayanjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchate. So without being attached to the objects that one has, no attachment to that. Anasaktasya vishayan. Vishaya is what? The objects, sense objects. Yatharham upayanjata. It is being used. What? Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. Directly in relationship with Krishna. Then it is real renunciation, yukta vairagya. But to reach that stage of yukta vairagya is also not easy, and therefore Srila Prabhupada is giving this example here, and Mahārāja Parīkṣit is personally showing his example of renouncing everything and hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam with 100% absorption. From whom? From the eternally Nitya Siddha devotee Shukadeva Goswami, who personally comes to. So this is the discussion between two pure devotees of the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami to Nitya Siddha, two eternally liberated devotees of the Lord. Srila Shukadeva Goswami and Srila Parīkṣit Maharaj. And so here Srila Prabhupada mentions there is no utility simply in imitating Mahārāja Parīkṣit and hearing Bhagavatam from professional men, even for 700 years. To take Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as a means of maintaining family expenditure is the grossest type of namaprada offense at the feet of the Lord. Sarva Shubha Kriya Samyam Api Pramada. So here, this is Kamasya Nendriya Priti Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jignasa Nartho Yascha Iha Karmabhi. So this is what is mentioned here in the end when Srila Prabhupada is stating that words, that the main thing is Jivasya Tattva Jignasa. So Kamasya Na Indriya Priti Labho Jiveta Yavata. So this is the transcendental position of real people, of the real 100% surrendered pure devotees of the Lord who talk about Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. They are not they are not speaking on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for material gain. So that is Kamasya Na Indriya Priti. So they are not speaking about Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam with an intention that I have this Indriya Priti. I want to get some material benefit out of it, and then I will enjoy my senses. Absolutely not. Kamasya Na Indriya Priti Labho Jiveta Yavata. Then how do they survive then? They survive with whatever comes of its own accord. So it is not that they are charging material, they're charging money for these things. They're just doing it as a loving devotional service to the Lord, understanding that each and every living entity is part and parcel of the Lord, and therefore their real constitutional position is in service with the Lord, in service to the Lord, giving the loving devotional service to the Lord. So that is Kamasya Na Indriya Priti Labho Jiveta Yavata. Then whatever is coming, it is coming of its own accord. Then what is the time being used for then in that case? Jivasya tattva jignasa. The time is being used to understand one's original constitutional position. As we were talking about the different states that we go through in our life, so there is a waking state, there is a dream state, then there is a deep sleep state, sushupti, and then there is the turiya, the fourth state. The fourth state is the state that one is always aware that I'm not this external covering that I have. That is the fourth state, turiya. And then the fifth state, turiya tita, that state is when one is 100% absorbed in loving devotional service of the Lord. So that is the understanding of the personal nature of the Lord. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdete. So this in the turiya state, in the fourth state, which is apart from waking, dream, and deep sleep, the fourth state is the realization of Brahman and Paramatma. And the fifth state is the realization of Bhagavan, Turiya Tita. So that is a state where these wonderful pastimes are taking place, the Nitya Leela. So Nitya Leela Pravishta, we say. For example, for Srila Prabhupada, we say Nitya Leela Pravishta. What does that mean? It means that is constantly engaged in that loving, he's in that pastimes of the Lord. He's totally absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord, and he is actually engaged in serving the Lord in those pastimes. This is Shri Radhika Madhavayor Apara Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namnam Pratikshana Swadana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charnaravinda. So this is what when we say the Guru Ashtakam prayer. So this is Pratikshana Swadana Lolupasya. At every moment, they are engaged in that service and tasting that transcendental mellows in that engagement of service. Sakshat Haritvena. So this is the transcendental position of the spiritual master. That they are constantly engaged in that service, even though externally they might be doing so many different things. So Manasa Seva it is called, serving in the mind, and is constantly serving the Lord through the mind, and that is the highest state. That is the Turiya Tita stage, the fifth stage of existence, where one is totally. And this month of Kartika, where Krishna performs his pastimes as Damodara, is the best month in terms of being absorbed, to become absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord. When one becomes absorbed in that pastimes of the Lord, one is totally in the transcendental realm, in the spiritual realm. Has nothing to do with this. So there could be so many upheavals happening in the material world. It has got no impact on one if one is totally absorbed in those pastimes of the Lord. Where Yashodamaya is trying to bind the person who binds the whole world. So this is the Tepisha Tantra Urudamni Badhya. Urudamni Badhya. So this is the conditioned, in the conditioned state of existence, one is bound by the modes of material nature. And who has these modes of material nature? Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyate sa Characharam Hetu Nanina Kaunteya Jagat Viparivartate. The whole modes of material nature is Prakriti. And under whose direction is Prakriti functioning? Krishna's direction. So Krishna has got the person who binds the whole universe in terms of their conditioned existence, because the conditioned existence is coming from the living entity itself. The living entity is choosing to be conditioned, and the living entity can choose to engage in loving devotional service. And when the living entity chooses to engage in loving devotional service and does that service with 100% surrender, the living entity then reaches that wonderful state of what Yashodamai was doing in terms of controlling, binding the Supreme Personality of Godhead to a wooden mortar through the rope. And that is Dhamma Udara. Dhamma is rope and Udara is belly. So to one whose belly the rope is tied, that is Sri Krishna, Damodar. So this particular verse, ātma-jāyā-sutāgāra paśu-draviṇa-bandhuṣu rājye cāvikale nityaṁ virūḍhāṁ mamatāṁ jahau. Mahārāja Parīkṣit, as a result of his wholehearted attraction for Lord Krishna, was able to give up all deep-rooted affection for his personal body, his wife, his children, his palace, his animals like horses and elephants, his treasury house, his friends and relatives, and his undisputed kingdom. Why? How he was able to give up? Because of his attachment to the wonderful pastimes of the Lord. And that is totally transcendental and spiritual. And when there is higher taste, automatically everything lower can be given up. So with that, I would like to conclude this discussion. So I see some of the comments here. Ankit Soni, Jai Shri Ram. Yogesh Giri, Manik Roy, Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Samanidhi Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paśyata Deshatarane. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Krishna Matirastu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.